Hello everybody, welcome back to the Level 1 News. Today is November 2nd, and today we're doing a classic breakdown, government and social.
How is it November already?
I know.
Time compression.
The Minecraft server should be online. There should be a link to it in the forum.
Oh, well that means that we absolutely have to know.
I don't know what theme, I've got like 3 ideas, but I don't want to do something so broad that's like, it's not good, but I don't want to do something so specific that it doesn't make people creative.
Krista, if we unleash those Minecraft players with no direction, we don't know what could happen.
That's what we did last year, and it was really cool.
No, we gave them some rules.
Well, we're going to have rules again this year, but like we didn't have a theme, a build theme.
I don't care about a theme, actually. What I want a way to keep them focused, to not let the energy just spiral out into weird public works projects. Like we should, because we weren't able to judge any of those.
We started with I don't know what happened from like a creative user standpoint, but from a technical standpoint, we started with a reasonably sized Linode. And then we went to one of the largest Linodes that Linode has, and it still wasn't enough because of the pent up, unrepentant energy of the unwashed masses.
Well, that was the farms.
Yeah, so the mob farms, yeah.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, there was a certain area around Spawn where someone had like a giant underground mass of like chickens and cows and stuff, and like there were hundreds of them down in this basement. And when you got near that build, your frame rate would start to stutter a little bit.
And they're going to have that going like day 5 this time around.
And we don't even know what we're giving away. Although Linode is on board to give away a bunch of hosting and swag and stuff like that. And that's just the game portion of Devember. There's also a development portion of Devember, also sponsored by Linode. Linode is Linux hosting, in case you're not familiar. You can get all of your container hosting, and you want to run your own cloud. You want to run your own, cloud file service that's not tied up with one of the big cloud providers. Well, Linode will do that and not charge you an arm and a leg. It's nice. We use it.
And they don't charge us anything for the Minecraft service because they're good people.
Yes, it's very nice. Thank you, Linode.
Also, I've got a couple of Twitter mentions. I guess they're not DMs. People ask me about November. Don't contact me on Twitter. I will not respond to you on Twitter. I don't use Twitter as a communication tool. Twitter is for the cats. And
there's at least 8 threads on the forum.
Yeah,
a lot of people are starting a little early, and that's totally fine.
That's good.
Yeah,
that's a pro strat.
So if you wanna go on and make your thread and start planning stuff now, that's fine.
It's also true that a lot of people are like, I need a very cookie cutter block stacking perfectly cubical set of instructions for what you want me to do for Devember. And it's like, no, that's not.
Failed.
Yeah, that's part of the magic here is that it's not. There's an affiliate link below that you can use to get $100 of free credits to use to build something for Linode. That's not a requirement, but you can use that. And I think it's pretty clear what the options are for November. It's basically wide open. And we're also arbitrary and capricious.
When you're going to reach a point in your life when every project you work on is dictated by your customers, right. You're going to hate it. Enjoy that for now.
Yes, we're the customers.
Except we're not giving you any. We're the worst kind of customer. Krista knows this. I'll know it when I see it.
Bring me a rock. Wrong rock. Bring me another rock. Wrong rock.
Could you show me some rocks that you like? No.
I'm doing like a minor logo rework for a client because their name changed. And when I was like writing out the terms, I was like, this quote includes like the actual logo redo and 1 to 2 rounds of minor revisions. And then I had like a little asterisk explaining what minor means. It's like, that doesn't mean we're redoing it every time. Because that is obnoxious, and it also wastes a lot of time and money.
November's for you. You can have a lot of fun. If you're not sure, ask questions in the forum. But that's part of the fun.
That's part of learning to deal with those people.
It's part of learning to live life.
A very important lesson in this business, believe me, because you will work with those people.
Very important lesson in life in general, because do you think the people at the DMV are going to do that for you? No.
Well, let's talk about some government news, and everybody's favorite FCC board member, not anymore. She's graduated, is Jessica Rosenworcel, and she's got a big smile on her face.
Biden appoints Jessica Rosenworcel to lead the FCC. Now, she was the interim chief. Now she's the official chief. She's the chief.
Also, that puts her out of her seat and into Ajit Pai's seat. Her seat was filled by another Democrat. If her confirmation can happen before the next calendar year, that will create the 3-2 Democrat imbalance in the FCC, where it has been 3-2 Republican during the Trump administration.
And somehow it still won't be better.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, maybe that means something, but probably not.
She's been doing a lot. I would give her, I mean, you know, she's got some of the problems the rest of them do, but I would give her like a 60-40. I think she's a little bit better than she is bad.
It is nice that she understands some of the technical issues, and like when the telecom companies tell her that up is down and black is white, they're apparently not stuffing enough cash into her pockets, and she's like, no, that's not how this works.
I mean, she's light years ahead of a Jeep Pie.
Yeah.
It's just, it doesn't, if you believe that a Jeep Pie was better than Jessica Rosenworcel, then you are just purely making all of your decisions on a party line, because there is no subjective argument to be made there. None. Or maybe you're like a Verizon CEO. Maybe then you could argue that.
Sometimes I think that if a Jeep Pie really believed the things that he was telling other people, that there's no hope for humanity.
I was at a thrift store recently and I saw a giant Reese's mug. I started to buy it for the set, and then I was like, is that kind of dated? I mean, he's gone now. But.
Well, I mean, that would be fun to just, we're panning through like the scary storage closet, and it's like, wait, is that a Jeep Pie's mug? What did you guys
Reese's
do?
Mug.
That would be, we could do a funny skit where it's like, if you drink from the mug, you just become an evil, soulless corporate robot. And then the other people have to try to find a way to dispel that.
I'll have to go back to the thrift store and see if it's still there.
I'm going to need that for an upcoming review video that launches next week or later this week.
So we've got also some court decisions that should interest you, because this is a big one, and we've seen this one play out over and over and over. But here's a sort of what can happen after the fact or cannot. Now, this is not totally decided. We have another layer of appeal, at least one to go, but it sounds good for now.
The police demand that you reveal your passcode, and you're not required to reveal your passcode because you're allowed not to incriminate yourself, or you have the constitutional right. Not that you're allowed. That's a constitutional right. And so the prosecutor told the jury that he refused to provide the passcode for his phone. That has a habit of prejudicing the jury against the individual, and you cannot say that. That's really well-established case law. The prosecutor definitely should know that, and so this should be grounds for being ejected as a prosecutor, because he would know better.
Well, that's not what's happening. They're just making sure you can't do it. The defense, objected to that, obviously, and it went to an appeals court, so they've won for now.
For now, but still, this is the kind of erosion of individuals' rights that and it really sucks that it's these kind of cases, because this case is really
he's terrible.
Yeah, it's pretty grisly.
Person. Yeah.
But
that's why they do that, though.
It's like, hey, they refuse to remember something that we're sure that they remember. That means they're guilty, and it's like, that's not how that's supposed to work.
But when it's that kind of situation, I think it points out the real problem there, which is the cops on the other end of that are not really monsters. They just think they know what's best.
Yeah.
And they're not that smart.
Yeah.
They can't see the big view. They're like, no, we're getting this monster off the street. That's the most important thing. But it's not. But cops believe that. So that's the world we live in. I didn't silence my phone.
Oh. Unprofessional.
And the regulators. The regulators desperately want to regulate everything. When there's something they can't regulate, makes them angry.
U.S. regulators exploring how banks could hold crypto assets. So if you read between the lines here, what they're saying is we can't trust the citizenry to have crypto because drug dealers could have unseizable assets. We need to make people have, their crypto at a bank because we can seize that. What?
Her quote, I'm paraphrasing because the paywall, but her quote really was like, if we don't regulate this now, we might never get a chance to control it.
Yeah.
And everybody who understands what Bitcoin is about is like, yeah, that's why we made this. It's because of you.
Don't you understand?
They don't. Or they do.
And that
that's why they're
enrages them,
doing
yeah.
this.
Or they say things like that, and then it's validation. It's like, that's why these things were done by those people, is because of this. And they don't realize.
And I feel like this is a subgenre of tech news that kind of goes underreported.
Yeah.
And that's when small government, and sometimes large government, bullies their employees in a way that should be illegal, but because of our system, it's not technically illegal, But if anybody just took a minute to read it, they'd be like, "What? That's crazy."
There's no way that that's true, and yet.
And when you get to the end of these stories, you're like, "Wow, I can't wait to see how this guy fixed this problem." And you find out, oh,
It wasn't.
It wasn't fixed.
these people just get screwed and nothing changes.
Well, there is a technology angle to this, but the headline is, "I refuse to lie under oath for the state of Arizona, and the courts are not on my side." This is true. So this has to do with convictions that stem from analysis of blood alcohol level and the technology involved in analyzing that. So they actually take a bunch of samples from you, and the samples don't necessarily all result the same result. So like if I take, if Ryan has a beer and we take 10 samples from him and one of them shows that he's above the blood alcohol level for, the legal limit or whatever, but the other 9 don't, they'll only submit the one into evidence. And so under cross-examination in the court case, this scientist operator person was like, yeah, we take like 10 samples and the prosecutor only provides the one, even though the other 9 might show that it's below the limit. I think that the defense should have access to all of the evidence that we collected, not just what we're going to use in trial. And that made his boss yell at him and discipline him, and ultimately led to his dismissal. And he also got fined.
That's they don't explicitly say it, but I imagine that lost them the case.
Yeah,
Because it was a yes or no question. It was like, do you think these were properly handled, and were we given all the information we needed? He had to answer no. Because he believed it was no, and he laid out the reasons why. Now, he sued, obviously, as you would, and what he learned was qualified immunity, which is, you can't go after the prosecutor or the cops, because this is their job, trumps the truth.
Yeah, because he was an employee of the state. He doesn't have a First Amendment right. I feel like this should be appealed to the Supreme Court, because that's literally not how how any of this is supposed to work. Like, if citizenry understood that this is the machinery that's been set up to punish them, there would be rioting in the streets.
I doubt it.
If they understood what was at stake.
Even then, I doubt it.
That's disappointing.
Yeah. We'll write about other things, but not that.
We're doomed as a species.
We are, but maybe the El Salvadorans will have an easier time of it than the rest of us. Why? Because they are embracing the future.
Bitcoin back over 60K as El Salvador buys 420 Bitcoin.
Blaze it.
Is this?
It's too bad it's not over 69K.
Is that a picture of hummus?
Yeah, I think it's hummus.
Yeah, because those are chickpeas. I don't know what that has to do.
They'll always be garbanzo beans to me, Chiquista.
Why do they have two different names? I've never been able to figure that
I
out.
have no idea.
Engagement challenge, if you know. I'll probably forget to look it up later.
So what is that? Like 25 million? Something like that. And yep.
That seems like not a lot for a country, but it definitely moved the price of Bitcoin.
1,100. Well, it's because there's so little Bitcoin moving at any given time.
That should tell you how much power the Winklevoss twins have to move the value of Bitcoin. It's pretty crazy.
And the U.S. government has made a terrible error. They have fumbled some patents, and it's going to cost them, and by them I mean us, a lot of money.
The U.S. government owes over $100 million for the TSA's patent infringement. What patent did they infringe? Was it some sort of high technology, whatever? No, it's one of the more rare method patents. It was a method for sorting and organizing and routing trays that you put your shoes in so they can be x-rayed to make sure that all the lanes have equal opportunity for trays to keep everything moving. Some guy came up with a way of doing it really efficiently and that they weren't doing, patented it, showed them, and they were like, this is really good. We're going to use this technique. We don't believe that that's patentable. And it turns out that it was.
10 years. That's why the number's so big, because they've just been over and over every day for 10 years racking up those.
How thrilled are you if that guy holds that patent?
I really think that he would have gotten way less money if he hadn't proposed, like, as part of the thing, he said, hey, I'm not even going to charge you money. I want advertising space on TSA gear in all of the airports. So it's like, I'm not even going to charge you money, but I want to do this advertising thing. So when it came time for this, to look at how much money he was owed, it was like, oh, the potential for advertising in airports is huge and it's grown. I think that he got as much money as he possibly could out of that because of the advertising thing versus trying to license it to them for, a few $1 million back then.
Kind of the mirror of the other story, in which this guy is an absolute monster, but he's on the right side of the law, and you have to agree with him. But you don't have to agree with Apple, because they are terrible. And once in a while, the governments pay attention to that.
The information reports that Apple is very likely to face a DOJ antitrust suit soon. Somebody's put together the Lego pieces finally. It's like, wait a minute. Apple is interfering with commerce between individual publishers, and they lost their lawsuit against Epic, or at least one part of it. They won actually basically everything except for the one point about the interfering with commerce part. And then now we also have news about how Apple is doing stuff with advertising and online stuff, and Facebook is down, and Apple's advertising product is way up after making changes. So they say they're championing privacy, but it actually bolstered their own advertising product. Yeah, the DOJ is probably going to come after them hardcore.
And that whole thing about, I just lost my train of thought completely.
Embarrassing.
Oh, the emails.
Oh.
The discovery emails.
Yeah.
Probably were the nail in the coffin, and the DOJ was like, okay, yeah, we can do this for sure.
That's one really nice thing. All the high technology companies that have people like us working in them that are just, a little bit on the spectrum, it's like we get an email. It's like, so what you want me to do is this horribly illegal thing that is this. This is what you're telling me to do.
Let me get this in writing
so
I can have a copy of this for later.
Yeah, and so we all do that. And then later it's like, why did you document this? And it's like, I didn't want you to throw me under the bus as you have for other minor things, let alone something this,
Because I've been burned before, and now I have to be this way, and I don't like to be this way, but this is how I am now.
That's how we all are.
And the question of AI, I think when it comes to the less AI and more weapons, but AI is also included here. A lot of people got a wake-up call last week, and they were like, oh, wait a minute. China's way ahead of us and everything? Hang on. What? Has no one been talking about this? I was like, well, yeah, if you picked up or if you read a newspaper or website in the last 5 years, 10 years.
Just looked at Twitter trending even. Come on.
Or, Donald Trump, he banged that drum a lot. I know we're not allowed to do anything that he said was to do anymore. But it looks like NATO has finally gotten the memo.
NATO launches an AI strategy and $1 billion as a fund in this defense against the AI, whatever. I really butchered that. I'm sorry.
That's, kind of a nebulous thing here. They don't have any specific ideas, but it's just basically China's probably better at us than AI right now. That could be devastating. Let's get better.
I read this article, and I really thought that, you remember the AI that would analyze how you were walking across the crosswalk, and then it could, figure out if a policeman had to go tell you that's like, hey, you didn't stay inside the crosswalk. I got the feeling that kind of an AI would blow their mind, and that's the kind of thing that they're looking to fund, and that was what was happening 15 years ago.
Well, that's funny is you're probably right. I don't know if this is where you're going with that, but you're probably right that they will cherry pick the worst of what China has done.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Won't that be a fun little reversal of fortunes if we're stealing Chinese technology to spy on our citizens?
Fun isn't really the adjective I would use, but
Have you guys seen this Chinese gate walking analysis software? It's incredible.
everyone's gonna have to walk like
We found
the characters
D.B.
from
Cooper.
Dune over the sand, so to attract the sandworms.
The anti-crab walking module
Yeah.
it was developed by the Germans or something, and it's like we combine it together.
We've detected crab walking. Send a team.
Can you imagine the prosecutor trying to make that evidence, and it was like he was deliberately crab walking to hide his identity?
And he had a sticker on his mask, so I couldn't identify his face.
They got a guy wearing leg braces, and he's just like, what? So one of those companies that has been accused, ever so many times, of helping China with this stealing and becoming the world power is Huawei, and we banned Huawei. But
Huawei, SMIC, and other suppliers have received billions worth of licenses for U.S. goods. Turns out you can buy stuff online. Some U.S. companies have been caught actually selling real goods. Samsung is among them, but in terms of licenses, that hasn't slowed down at all. And the State Department is not happy.
although they did say, they had a couple of different quotes. It was like, well, licenses are not the same as real products, and maybe not all this stuff is physically shipping, but some of it for sure was physically shipping.
Yeah.
So,
Huawei's a lot of money.
and if you are blind, technology has come a long way to helping you out. You can enjoy a lot of things that blind people 50 years ago couldn't even dream about. But very often you will run into problems with copyright. We have this weird rule about ebooks. The written ebook and the audio ebook, because of audible.com basically, are not the same thing. There's a copyright discrepancy there, even if you're just using an e-reader.
Blind people won the right to break ebook DRM. In 3 years, they're going to have to do it again. So this is something that comes up every few years because of the DMCA. See, the DMCA doesn't just make anti-circumvention technologies illegal. They say if for some reason there's a workaround that's needed, we have to reevaluate whether that workaround is actually needed every 3 years. It's really insidious because it wears you down.
So, unfortunately, for now, if you are someone who has trouble reading, you have 3 years. Hoard as many ebooks as you can and get the audio versions.
I think that if you have the audiobook version where like Stephen Fry is, lovingly reading you whatever, and that's very enjoyable, okay, I see that being its own copyright. But if you have an ebook and Microsoft Sam is reading it to you, it takes a lot to stay awake to Microsoft Sam reading you that much text. It's that shouldn't count the same.
How about if you build a system that automates taking a DRM ebook, going through whatever official process you have to go through to get it on this list or approved or whatever, and then actually do the text-to-speech also automated and put that on the cloud somewhere? That would be an all-star Devember project. You're probably taking home #1 prize with that if you can do that.
And also the feds are coming for you.
Well, you got 3 years.
But think how happy we would be if we saw that project.
Oh, yeah.
Forget your freedom.
That's a huge project. And point of sale technology. So we know that we don't want the Chinese in our networks, right? That's incredibly dangerous.
Huawei, Hikvision, where the feds are literally offering money if you accidentally bought that equipment to replace it.
But there seems to be a blind spot with something that you could argue is maybe more critical because all of our money runs through it.
The FBI raids Chinese point-of-sale giant Pax Technology. That happened today in Florida. This is really incredible. You think that they, deployed Hikvision cameras that were just backdoored to heck and back, and those are everywhere because they're cheap. They were artificially cheaper. Like you could sell those at a slight loss because, hey, you want to get them everywhere. And now you've got control of all these surveillance networks. No one has really caught you, and you've enjoyed it for years. The Machiavellian plan in the beginning was, we'll start by backdooring chips that everybody uses, and then we'll deploy the camera system. And then by the time we're in the point of sale, it's too late. When really everybody in America is so lazy and dumb, they could have just gone for the point of sale system from the beginning.
So how do we know this? Well, it turns out that some people who were using this point of sale system started seeing some weird network traffic going out. And when they started looking at that, you had rootkits, droppers, command and control, all running on these point of sale systems.
It's a great way to steal credit cards.
And this has been a slow burn.
Yeah.
We've been using these point of sale systems for a decade?
Yeah.
Because of the woke media and everything, I can't relate to anything that I see nowadays. I listen to a lot of old stuff on YouTube that I didn't hit the first time around that I've become a fan of. I was listening to something from 2012, and it was a guy from the CIA, and he was like, yeah, the Chinese are playing the long game. They will put somebody in our school system right now to activate them in 10 years. You wait and see. And I was like,
here we are.
Goodness gracious.
Over in the UK, they are doing everything they can to get rid of ARM, some of them. And the rest of them are like, no, we need this. What are you doing?
Setback for Nvidia's $54 billion ARM acquisition as EU regulators have opened a probe. What is that probe? It's really they're opening their wallets and they're saying, how are you going to offset this for the economy?
Look how empty this is. Their big argument has to do with they're afraid, or so they claim, and based on NVIDIA's past, they have an argument here. They're afraid that NVIDIA is going to get control of it and be like, oh yeah, everybody who's licensing it, not anymore.
Yeah.
This is ours now. A lot of people license ARM.
Yeah.
A lot of people.
Including Intel and AMD and literally everybody.
A little further to the east there, we've got France. And France is trying to stop their economy from becoming like our economy. And by that I mean Amazon economy. They're trying to think of ways. I'm not sure if this is going to work.
No. France moves to shield its book industry from Amazon. How are they planning to do that? Minimum shipping fees. They think that Amazon Prime is why Amazon is going to take over the universe. So if they eliminate Amazon Prime legally, surely to goodness that'll save the mom and pop book publishers.
But it might help a little bit, but I don't know that it would help enough to save the little shops.
They already have a rule that you cannot discount a book during a certain time window of when it's released. So in France, you have to pay full price for new release books by law. I can see how that would disadvantage Amazon. China has announced, now there are 2 non-peer-reviewed papers.
I look for corroborating stuff for this, can't find it.
Yeah, so no one's sure how real this is, but it's big if true.
China's new quantum computer has 1 million times the power of Google's. And it goes on to talk about quantum error correction, and there's a lot of really interesting stuff in this article. Let me just go ahead and fast forward. We've already seen this pattern play out. Remember the lunar mission from China? And it's like, we're going to land this thing on the moon and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, first it was the science mission. And then the next week was, wait a minute, that rocket that circled the Earth twice, delivering a Buick-sized rover to Mars, could have also dropped a nuclear weapon just as easily. Quantum computer. Oh my gosh, is RSA encryption ended? That's going to be the article next week.
Luckily, it's very error-prone and not working at all right
But
now.
it's got a lot of error correction.
Or maybe that's what they're telling us.
Yeah, who knows?
Our Google's version is it's just a distant memory. Was it like so many sextillion times faster? It's crazy. I think that might be a regular computer, but still, it's very impressive.
Listen, if it's producing a 128-bit key and it only got 40 of those 128 bits correct, that vastly reduces the key space that has to be searched.
Yeah, that's kind of the end of security.
Yeah. Well, for RSA, we have to use quantum hardened encryption algorithms, which we do have. We just need to not use the ones that are weak to. Now, are we going to, in 5 or 10 years, is this going to be another dual elliptic curve where the feds had a really nice quantum computer all along, and that's why they really liked the RSA algorithms, and that's why we have not adopted AES? Is that what's going on here?
And they've been using their quantum computers to
Yeah.
break our encryption freedoms?
Yeah.
I would totally believe that, yeah. But I think the problem that you're going to have there is that the states wouldn't sit on that. That would be a hell of the collusion there would be crazy. Not saying it's impossible.
I'll have to have at least 8 or 9 hours of, sad walking and reflecting if it comes out that has been the conspiracy for the last 10 years. And it's like, we kept that secret for over a decade?
Do you have like a timer on your watch while you take your sad walk? Like,
It's the meme of like the vaguely Mexican looking guy that's in the empty swimming pool.
oh yeah, and he's like got his arms behind his back and he looks sad.
Yeah, it's like that.
I think that you would not have time for that. I think you'd be busy. I think we all would.
Replacing algorithms.
Just putting out the fires, the security fires that would bring up.
Yeah, it seems like Mexico. It seems like Russia or China couldn't resist using it to just backdoor one more thing, steal one more set of credit cards, something.
Well, India, if you want some idea of why we think that it could be possible that the powers that be are so evil and so controlling that they would let that happen, they would stop the forward momentum of human technology in order to control, we need to only look at India.
Indian Supreme Court orders inquiry into states' use of Pegasus spyware. Turns out that the Modi government may have been using the Saudi Arabian iPhone spyware that's a zero-click install that probably got that a journalist guy killed, the one that the Crown Prince, that kind of thing.
Khashoggi.
Yeah. It turns out that that spyware may have been used on some dissidents. They weren't terrorists. They weren't planning on blowing anything up. They weren't planning to murder a bunch of people. They were just trying to report on stuff going on in India.
But you say maybe. I don't think it's a maybe at this point. This was the money was in the budget. Like the line item was in the budget. We know that they bought it. We don't know that they used it. But what are the odds that they didn't use it?
Very low.
Yeah. So, and we have from the other side these journalists and freedom fighters and stuff who have come forward and been like, look at my phone. Study my phone. And they're like, yep, that's Pegasus. Could have been the Russians.
Probably not, though.
And LinkedIn, we have seen lately that LinkedIn is trying to find its identity. I think it's sort of falling out of favor. Its relevance is going away, so it has to try to think of a new way to do it.
LinkedIn rolls out its freelance services market globally after picking up 2 million users in a smaller U.S. beta. I'm kind of on the fence here because it's like on the one hand, some people are real excited with like the gig economy. It's like I can take a job and work for a little while and then sort of go away. But on the other hand, a lot of companies are like super abusive and difficult to deal with, and it's just not a great situation for freelancers, long or short term.
Well, it devalues the work typically. So like it looks like they're trying to compete with something like Fiverr.
Yeah.
And
it's very much a race to the bottom.
Yeah.
They're ideally what they want is Fiverr, but for more skilled work.
Yeah.
Basically.
It's a really interesting pivot for LinkedIn, to be sure.
Maybe we should try to get Nubbin involved in that. And then we can sort of see how bad it is. But he's got no other options.
Well, with LinkedIn's other acquisitions, it seems like LinkedIn is going for like a central, like, we want to be like the training and certification authority eventually. Like you're going to get your LinkedIn certificate in Security Plus and your LinkedIn certificate in, web, or your LinkedIn certificate in Six Sigma or something.
Well, I'll tell you one company that every day when the leadership of this company wake up and they turn on the computer and they see these headlines about Huawei and hypersonic missiles and stuff like that, they're just like, no, no, please, it's not us.
TikTok tells U.S. lawmakers that it does not give information to China's government. And he was grilled by Congress, but the problem with Congress is they don't even really know what they're asking. And the guy responding to the questions was actually pretty smart. And he had direct answers, but they felt incomplete at times.
They have done a lot to try and prove that they're not involved with the Chinese government, but I don't know how easy it is to get uninvolved with the Chinese government once you are.
Well, what it sounded like to me was like, okay, imagine, we've got, the Level 1 forums and all of this stuff is going on there. And, there's no, CCP party accounts on that. That's completely fine.
There's probably at least one.
But we do have servers that we don't physically have access to that are in China, and so and our backups go there, and it's like, would we know if our backups were stolen if they weren't leaked on the internet?
By the way, it's not true of the Level 1 forum.
Probably
make that
not.
Clear.
Yeah. We don't actually host in China or anything like that. I'm just saying if we did. So with TikTok, it's like if their servers are in China and their infrastructure, is it possible?
Didn't they move it though?
Yeah. Well, I mean, what about the backups? What about replicas? What about the normal process? So it's possible that they could be in there and you'd never know.
And you got to be careful about lying about that, even if it's
Mm-hmm.
just omission, because you're in front of Congress. It's a tough spot to be in, but then again, the nice spot to be in is being the most popular social media platform. Huh?
Good segue.
That would be a pretty cool call to get one day. It's like, hello, this is the State Department. We think that the Chinese or the Russians have targeted you. We've allocated a few $1 million to basically have your own, whatever the equivalent of a Secret Service detail is to protect your online assets. And it's like, wow, that's pretty cool.
They don't do that.
But that's where we're headed. That's where we have to be headed.
I don't. You don't want the government in charge of that. What are you talking about?
They do that in Germany to protect some of the industrial and manufacturing secrets, but I think Germany's the only country that I know of that really proactively does that.
And that takes us into the social media section, which you can kind of guess if you've been reading the headlines what this is about. Everything about this is about good old Facebook. But wait, not Facebook.
Facebook is changing its name to Meta. And it's Facebook the company, not Facebook the product. Facebook the product is still going to continue to exist. Facebook.com. Facebook.com is, blah, blah, blah. But Meta is Meta.
It was always confusing that they just called it Facebook for the parent company. That was always strange. I never understood that decision as a branding decision.
I like Mel Brooks' thing, Facebook the flamethrower.
Musk already did that. What about, Krista, the logo where we have the infinity symbol, but it's kind of like it's got a birth defect?
Well, I think they're trying to make it look a little bit like an M. What I think is more interesting, so the old Facebook parent company logo, all caps. In this one, they've done mixed caps. Usually when a company's trying to appear more friendly, they'll go all lowercase.
Well, it's definitely what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
A lot of this, let's face it, is to try to get away from the Facebook name,
Yes.
which has been badly poisoned.
Yes.
He's like, maybe the humans will not remember if I change the name.
And that's not the only thing they've figured out. They've also figured out why their relevance has been dwindling lately and why TikTok is dunking on them.
Facebook says it's refocusing the company on, quote, serving young adults, unquote. This is like big tobacco focusing on servicing young adults.
On the lung cancer industry.
So, yeah, they're saying, hey, we understand that who we're serving now. Listen, my parents are on Facebook. That means that Facebook is completely irrelevant for anybody who's young. And they're saying, what can we do about this? But I think you have to shake off the old dogs, right? How do you do that?
I think you give them their own sandbox, but then you have something else. Yeah.
Facebook is now old person.
Yeah.
Social media. Hilarious. And Meta is not just a name. By they I mean Zuckerberg, has claimed that the metaverse will be our future. What exactly is the metaverse? No one knows.
I keep looking for details in every one of these articles, thinking like, maybe I'm just dumb. I must not get it. But no, there's just no.
I think this is part of their marketing campaign. I think that the marketing agency that came up with this decided that less is more, and the mystery will build interest. And so if we don't really talk about how it's going to be augmented reality or whatever, that it won't be disappointing when it finally releases.
Which is interesting because if that's true, and you are someone at Facebook, how are you going to draw up this budget? We're going to spend this much money on, I don't know. I don't know what it is.
Facebook is spending at least $10 billion this year on its metaverse division. A lot of that's going to be in EU in an attempt to make the EU regulators, if not happy, placated under the threat of having to now fire all of those people in the EU.
Look at all these jobs we created.
Yeah. Like, if you fine us, we're just going to have to fire all these people. It's like, okay, I guess we won't.
And I'm just trying to do a quick
you're resorting.
preview.
The one tab's going to be weird.
There's the entire rest of the show is about Facebook, basically.
It's in the business section. I didn't put it in this section. All right. Well, I'll just ignore that. Let me come up with a new transition.
Ugh.
So, Facebook, part of the reason that they're giving up on Facebook and doing something drastic, obviously they've had their troubles in the past, but the bottom line is money. And that line is moving down. And Facebook thinks they know why.
Facebook has said in their quarterly report that Apple's privacy rules are negatively affecting Facebook and its businesses, and it's going to get worse in Q4. That was in the earnings call, where they have to be honest with their shareholders. Somebody made a graph of how good Apple's advertising thing is doing now in their quarterly reporting. Inverse. Yeah, it is bananas.
One of those lines is going down, and one of them is going straight up. We call that a death cross. And that is not all of the strife that we learned between Facebook and Apple. This one happened a while back, but we're just now finding out about it. And it's a juicy little detail, too. Now, we've heard in the past, I remember we did a story, I can't remember what the tech tie-in was, but there's this thing in the Middle East in certain countries where the maids are kind of traded like baseball cards. They're like, I'm getting tired of my maid. Let me get yours. All right, here we go. Let's swap. How do you facilitate that? Well, you use Krista's favorite thing in the world.
The marketplace.
The marketplace.
Facebook marketplace.
Apple once threatened Facebook ban over Mideast maid abuse. So it was so blatant and egregious that Apple was noticing it from the App Store side of things, not traffic inside the app. And Facebook's like, that's just how it is. We don't care.
50 domestic helper. Do you think 50 refers to the number of, or the payment, or... Because it says 23 to 39 years old.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's strange.
When you hit 40, can you no longer be a domestic helper?
You can't be, I guess in their mind, probably a hot domestic helper, which is what they care about.
But it's a big industry. Do you think all the girls working there are that Caucasian?
Probably not.
No. They say that they source most of them from Africa. And they have almost no rights. The thing that we found out about, I think they changed the law somewhere where it was like the maids kind of, they stood up a little bit. They're like, no, we're being traded like cattle here.
Yeah.
And I think once you get in, if they fire you, you got to go back home.
Yep.
You can't stay in the country. That was another big thing that they cared about.
So are they, I might be misunderstanding here, but like, do they not have like a parent company who handles all that? Or is it just like each individual maid just works for a family? Basically like indentured servitude.
I'm pretty sure that getting into the country can be conditioned on whether or not you're a maid. So it's almost like a visa program.
Yeah.
But it's
indentured servitude.
It is indentured servitude. That is exactly what you would describe that as. I don't know, man, they're into it, but I think once they get there, the terms can change.
Right, and then that's not fair anymore. And they don't have anybody who represents them at the government level to help them get out of that situation. That sucks.
And Facebook had a little bit of a breach. This happened a while back, and they've known about it for a while, but we are just now finding out what's going to happen to this young man.
Facebook sues Ukrainian who scraped the data of 178 million users. So Ukrainian national, he'll probably go back to the Ukraine, and that's probably all that will happen to him.
So yeah, he was, this is one of these hacks where it's like, well, this was kind of a hack, but also you made this really, really poorly.
Yeah.
It was the import feature.
He wrote an Android application to pretend to be a lot of Android phones, and the Facebook thing was basically like, okay, yeah, that sounds good. I mean, this is the kind of thing, you see this pop up in ad industries a lot, where there's definitely a lot of bot traffic happening, but in the analytics that the company provides to the parent company, they're like, oh, that juices our numbers a little bit. Let's not ban the bots completely outright. And so that's probably what was happening here, is like he was scraping data and generating lots of phone IDs, and Facebook, somebody probably knew, but they were looking at the numbers and it's like, wow, we're getting a lot of new phone activations. Let's just let this one slide.
So when you do a phone activation, or you pretend to do a phone activation with a number that you just scraped somewhere and made up, it'll give you all the contacts. So he was just harvesting that, building databases, selling them on the dark web. Brilliant. But
Got caught.
He had to give all the money back, and he might do some time. And Facebook, when they do things wrong, they don't have to worry about jail time. Isn't that convenient? But they do get large fines.
Facebook fined a record £50 million by a UK competition watchdog. Why? Suppressing ads.
Same old story. What do you think about this one, Chris? I guess it's like broken glass Facebook?
It looks like they just took a picture of someone's broken phone with the logo on it.
Kind of a small number for them, though. If you're going to find Facebook, go big. Although they multiplied it hundreds of times because of the egregious nature of it. That's still all they could get.
Some middle manager was just like, yeah, I guess I'll write a check for that, whatever. They don't even care. They never even made it to Zuckerberg.
The headline on this one is very clickbaity, but then you dig into it and it's like, couldn't you say this about a lot of companies?
Oh, this is just woke nonsense. This is people within Facebook who, again, are putting the party line over just being reasonable.
Yeah.
It's just in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
Because,
internal messages that have surfaced as a result of lawsuits and whatnot. Facebook staff internally said that it was their company's fault over the January 6th, insurrection. But it's like, you could say the same thing about Twitter or 4chan or
any place where people gather.
Yeah. Like anywhere, the
coffee shop where
Google,
some people met up before they drove to DC. Like,
yeah,
people have been quiet,
loud
about Google doing this kind of thing.
It's the most disappointing thing about this. I mean, yeah, something clearly happened, and Facebook breeds malcontent, and whatever. That's fine.
The worst parts of humanity are also on Facebook.
But there's so much worse happening, like the Qatar human trafficking thing. Why are we not worried about a company that's complicit in that kind of stuff versus our own dysfunction that would be there regardless?
Because the media narrative did not direct you to that. And our final social media story is not about Facebook, but instead a Facebook competitor. No, it's not going to be one. But we have learned a little bit more about Trump's new Truth platform, specifically the terms of service.
This is republished on MSN from Time. We're getting really weird with the whole anti-paywall thing. But the headline is, what's allowed on Trump's new Truth social media platform and what isn't? What's not allowed, surprisingly, is links to some platforms. Huh. Iframing videos, also not allowed.
And
there's not a lot else here.
Wait, they don't allow you to iframe a video?
Nope.
Like you can't share a video? That's interesting.
You might be able to share some videos, but not to every site.
The big one is, two big things that they've admitted here. The first one is this phrase, which, like, if you're going to have total free speech, especially when you're looking at what the existing social media companies did and why this is supposed to exist.
Disparage, tarnish, or otherwise harm, in our opinion, us and or the site.
And I get it. If you wrote the terms of service, you'd put that in there too, because that's the only way that you can get ahead of all that. But it doesn't sound like the truth platform.
I mean, if Google had written that into their terms of service, we would probably not be. You'd have to just subscribe on Floatplane and Patreon at this point.
The other thing is they basically, in a flowery statement said, if law enforcement comes here, we'll give them everything.
Yeah.
Like, we're not going to fight that. And they have to. Again,
Yeah.
they don't have a choice. But if you're selling it as the alternative, this doesn't sound like an alternative.
Do you think they'll allow you to like upload video and stuff on there?
I
Isn't
don't-
that like a huge bandwidth cost?
It seems like everything about this is in question. I admit I thought that he would do a better job, but the more we see of it, it looks like it's another MyPillow.
Yeah.
Not quite as bad, but it's going to be a huge flop. I
Well,
think.
it's not launched yet. When is it supposed to launch? Do we know?
First of the year. I think the SPAC numbers went back down too. Like there was a lot of initial investment furor, and then people were like, okay, maybe this sucks. And maybe it does.
What if the design's like really good? And it's like, man, I don't agree with this, but man, what a good UX. Everyone else should be taking notes.
You should make that video if that happens, Chris. Oh boy, would that get a lot of hits.
That would get a lot of hits.
All right, well, tomorrow will be business and security.
We will see you guys then. Bye.